Martin Winslow here, co-founder of Bethlehem Christian Academy in Zambia, Africa. And today is a special day because we're celebrating 10 years as an organization. That's right, an entire decade. And I want to thank each one of you for your faithful giving, for your sponsorships through the years of all of those children in Zambia, Africa. God has blessed us. When I think back over 10 years, it still sends a shiver down my spine to think about in 2009, in the sunroom of Kurt Wee's house, we were praying that God would use us, help us to be faithful to take the gospel to the poor and the orphan in remote places where they had no gospel. And by God's grace, He linked us up with a partner, Victor Chibangula in Zambia, Africa. And in 2010, we took our first trip over to Africa and we saw this village, this little village called George. And we came back and told you the story, and many of you said, we want to be involved. We want to help those children to get a great education, to hear the gospel, and to get a meal every day. And BCA has been dedicated to that for the past 10 years. And I want to thank you today for your faithfulness through the years. And I remember that the first year that we launched, we had 31 students and we stuffed them in a little community building. We didn't have any property yet or anything like that. And it was soon evident that we would need more space. And by God's grace, that next year, He provided some property for us. And I remember taking a team out to that area that we had just bought and all of us holding hands and praying for God to provide because we had no money for a building. And by the Lord's grace, by the next year, we had raised $45,000. And those came from your gifts to make that first academic building a possibility. And so I want to thank you for that. And as I look back over those years, and I think about the many times that He used you as our campus began to swell over time at George and we started our second campus in Labudo Village. I remember again in Labudo, we had no money for the academic building, but we had all these kids who were hungry, who needed the gospel and needed an education. And again, we locked arms and many of us prayed over that spot. And by the next year, we had the money again. God has just provided for this ministry. And so we give glory to Him. But He used you, His church, as the engine to make all of that possible. After 10 years, as I reflect, I think of over 500 people that we've been able to mobilize to Zambia, Africa, to minister and to do vacation Bible schools and to pour into students and meet the kids that you guys sponsor, to love them. I think of the conversions that we've seen. It took 7 years before our first students came to faith. And then I remember that first baptism. I can see it in my mind of baptizing Skeva and Charles and little Lucy Mwewa. And 2 years later, Samia coming to faith and baptizing her, Ketty Kabanda. And 2 years ago, the very child that my family has sponsored at the time for 9 years, little Ruth Mbulo, and getting the opportunity to baptize her in the village as she came to faith in the gospel. I think of the blessing of seeing John Chibuye, little John, come to faith and finding him out by himself later after we'd given him a new Bible, reading the Bible in English. He was in the middle of Genesis by the time I got to him. So God has done amazing, amazing things. Last year, we served 98,000 meals to hungry children. And you did that. God used you, His church, to do that. So I want to ask you to consider at the end of this year, number one, if you don't sponsor a kid, to sponsoring a child. We still have some kids available on our website that we'd love for you to commit $36 a month to sponsoring those children. You can go to bcaministries.com and look and find children that are still available for sponsorship. I also would ask you to consider prayerfully giving to our building projects as well. We have 2 buildings that we need to build quickly. And we're trying to raise $95,000 for an academic building and also a science laboratory building. And so we need that money soon so that those projects continue to move forward as the kids go up into high school. Currently, we have $42,000 that's already been given. And so we need to raise $53,000 more. No big deal for the Lord. And so I'm going to ask you to be generous at the end of this year. And again, celebrate with me 10 years of faithfulness. I know you guys have all been such a critical part of this ministry. And I'm asking you, for all of you that have been a part of this ministry in the past and will be in the future, to give God thanks and give God the glory today for a decade of faithfulness for Bethlehem Christian Academy, and let's pray for 10 more great years.